Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Today I'm going to do what the title says, which is I'm going to show you some life-changing short stories. Now, I made a video which was life-changing books and people seem to like that, and so I've been trying to collect up some short stories that I could do this video on. So all the short stories are from this book, which I had to get for university. It's the Penguin Book of Modern British Short Stories. It's the one that's edited by BRADBURY. It's just this one. I really like the cover because I'm into like Tudor history. This reminds me of little Tudor roses. And I had to get this for university and I've read a lot of the short stories out of it. So I'm just going to tell you the basic plots of them and just go straight into them. So the first one is Mysterious Court by Elizabeth Bowen. Now this is a short story which is about, it's set in the Blitz, and a young soldier gets leave from like the army for one night, so he goes to spend it with his girlfriend. His girlfriend lives with a girl who's very childlike, and they have to go back there. But obviously it's in a time when, you know, my generation is a lot more, you can have one night stands and do all that sort of thing, where then you couldn't have sex with someone if you weren't married. So what happens is she has to sleep with her roommate and he has to sleep in another room, and it's all kind of like all about how the war has stopped these youths being together, and it's kind of about sexual, I don't know, frustration of the whole situation. So you read it and it's very sad and you kind of get that. You then read it again, and I'm not going to say what it is, but you read it again and you realise that it's a completely different dimension, and it is so freaking moving. It's unbelievable. You have to read it a few times and you have to pick up on all the subtlety throughout it, and it is beautiful. So yeah, if you've read that and you know like what is the underlying thing within it, don't put it in the comments, let other people read it to see. The another one is Ted Hughes's The Rain Horse. Now, Ted Hughes is the first thing I've read by him. He is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful writer. I cannot tell you how good his descriptive language is. It is stunning. So, The Rain Horse is about a boy who goes back to a forest that he used to play in when he was a child, and there's this wild, crazy, dangerous horse kind of running around at him basically, and he has to try and defend himself. What I took from this is that it doesn't matter how educated you are, nature is nature, and we are all animals within us, and you know, this boy is a gentleman, he's in a suit, and yet he has to become an animal to defeat an animal, so we all have that within us. Another thing I took from it is that you look back on your childhood with rose-tinted glasses, and then when you go back to places within your childhood, you realise they weren't as nice or as magical as you thought they were, and when you realise that, you then realise that you are an adult. Very beautiful, very worth reading for everyone to kind of say, you know, once you realise that you are no longer a child and your childhood has ended. Very beautiful. But just for the writing, Ted Hughes is such a good writer. I'm going to get through this quite quickly. Okay, I have two more. I have this one, which is my favourite out of all of them. This is by Doris Lessing and it's called 2 Room 19. Okay, I'm trying to like calm myself so I don't go off too much about this one. This was the best short story I've ever read in my whole life. I've read a lot of short stories because I want to write short stories myself as a living. I have read a lot and this was so moving, it was unbelievable. Okay, you've got this couple, they're both very well educated, they're, you know, very just smart people, they both got their own jobs, both support themselves, fabulous. They then get to a certain age where they think, oh, we've got to get married and we've got to have children because everyone else is, and I think this is so like paramount to how we live as a species, like especially in our culture and everything. You get to a certain age, you get married, you have children, you become a mother, you raise those children then fly the nest, and you wait till you have grandkids, you look after the grandkids, then you die. And that's it, and that's the mould. And everyone thinks they're like being new, you know, and they hold their baby for the first time, like, this is a new experience. It's like, no, it's not. It's the most played out experience. It's the most cliche thing you could do with your life. If you want to do that, and you within yourself want to, that's fine. But if you're doing it because you think you have to, and it's what the norm is, then I don't think you should do it. I personally probably will never have children. I have no desire to have children. I have no desire to get married and all that. So, back to the short story and how, like, I think my opinions is what made the short story so special to me. So this woman becomes a stay-at-home mum, so she has to give up her successful job and look after these children, and she just has a massive breakdown, and the basis of the story is having children and being a mother is just not what's meant for every woman. We think it is, and we think it's the most natural thing in the world, but actually it's not, and that it's really, some people just cannot do that life, you know. They are career driven, or they're other driven, or they just want to use their intelligence. They don't want to look after children. I know looking after children is like one of the hardest jobs you can do in the world. I personally could probably never be a mother, never stay at home and look after my children. I just don't have that capacity within me to do that. So it's just a shocking, that's the thing, that's like the word for this story, shocking. From start to end, the story is just, it goes against everything we're told, because you've got this woman looking at her children and just being like, I'm trapped to them. Like just looking at them like, I'm trapped to this house is my shackles, these children are my shackles, and I'm never going to get rid of them, and I have lost my own identity. That's what it's massively about as well, because she's a highly intelligent person and she's lost all identity and self, because when you become a mother you give yourself to your children and everything, and it's just freaking amazing. Okay, I'm going to stop going on about that story, but read it. I'm sure you can find some of these stories online for free, but read that story. I'm going to read everything Doris Lessing has written now, because one, like the language and everything is beautiful, but just the way she goes into things, and the woman thinks there's something in the garden, like a monster, and it's all about like psychology. So good. And then the last story I've spoken about before, it's by KAZUO ISHIGURO. It's called A Family Supper, and it's about a boy who now lives in California. He was born and raised in Japan. He goes back to Japan. His mother has died, and he's got a very stilted relationship with his father, and it's just about that. And yeah, it's about culture. It's about cultures colliding. Many people think that KAZUO ISHIGURO are like, what is his culture? Because he was born in Japan. He then, when he was 5, came over to England, and then when he was older he took a gap year out and went around like America, and so he's from, you know, different cultures you could say, and so it's about cultural identity. And I think it's, if you're born somewhere, is that your culture, or is it where you choose to live? Because I would say it's a mixture of both, but the book's kind of, the short story challenges that, because obviously he has, his whole childhood has been Japan, and it's been this very, men have to be very strong and don't cry and everything like that. And then he goes to California, which is a much more, you know, men aren't as masculine as that. They can be in touch with their feelings, they can talk, which I think is a good thing. And it's just about the cultural differences. Stunningly good. The wording, everything. When he describes the garden and then he thinks he sees a ghost of his mother. So good. So yeah, they're the 4 short stories that will change your life, because they will in so many different ways. The first one will change your life because you'll read it and you'll just be so saddened, and it will give you a more like reality of war and how it stops people's lives, and how we just see numbers like 100 people have died, but that's obviously 100 people's lives that could have led on to other things, and how war kind of robs you of your life. Because if you think about the people that lived in the Second World War, which I'm actually writing a short story about at the moment, just for like fun, I'm talking about how this man used to have a full life, and then when the Second World War came along, he was living in a state of like kind of static, and how the war just stopped his life completely and robbed him of so many years. So that's what that one's about. Ted Hughes is a rain horse. It's kind of about the realisation of we are all animals. We like to think we're not. We like to think we're very different from animals, but we are actually exactly the same as them. We have exactly the same urges, and how childhood, when you realise childhood ends, what a brutal kind of cut to you that is. True Room 19 is about how not everyone fits the social mould, so I don't really feel like I fit the social mould. I, you know, feel like we change throughout our lives. If you marry someone at 20, people say you change every 5 years of your life, you drastically change. So if you marry someone at 20, at 25, it's going to be highly unlikely that you and your partner have both changed in the same ways. So, you know, I have a difficulty with that, and that's what that's about. It's beautifully written about how children are kind of shackles to you. I love Alice Walker, as all of you know. She wrote The Colour Purple, many other things, Revolutionary Petunias, which is a beautiful poetry collection, and she also wrote a poem which her daughter hated. It's basically talking about how children are like chains. They shackle you, and you have to understand that you give your life to them, and we think of it as a great thing, you know, giving our life and love to this child, but really it's a very, you've almost put yourself in prison by doing that, and you've stopped yourself. And yeah, so that whole concept it really does speak to me, because I've always felt that, and I've always felt kind of out of place as like a woman who doesn't want children, and I don't want to get married, and I don't really believe in spending your life with one person. Not that I don't believe in love, I just think, you know, we change throughout our lives, so our partners must change. If you talk to someone, they'll normally say, I was in love with someone when I was 20, and then I met my now husband, and I'm in love with him. And it's like, well, if there's one true love, how are you in love with two people? You know, it's just a very interesting thing. And then last but not least, KAZUO ISHIGURO will talk to you about kind of nature versus nurture. If you're raised somewhere, is that where your cultural identity is? Or is it something that's born within you? Or is it where you choose as an adult to spend your days? Very interesting, because what about people that travel the world and never have like a set home? Where is their cultural identity? What culture do they fit into? You know, we're all very different. I could just talk about all this stuff for so long, but if you think about me, I'm raised in England, so my culture is English. If I was in Saudi Arabia, I'd be very different. I wouldn't be as outspoken. As a woman, I would not be talking like this. I would not have my own YouTube channel. I would not be this forthright in views. I would probably not be educated. So if you travel the world, what culture do you fit into? Is it the one you were raised in? But what if you were raised all over the world? Very interesting thing to talk about. So there are, I feel like I've just given you a lecture, I'm very sorry. There are the 4 short stories that would change your life. I read another short story the other day that I was like, oh, I might add to this. I might do like a part 2 to this video at some point. I'll do another part 2 to my original video, which was life-changing books. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you like my background, my little pinboard. And I will see you again soon for another video. This is a great short story collection to buy, so I would buy it if I were you. I'll see you very soon. Thank you so much for sitting through this video.